Let's get ready to rumble.
We're back. The Ramble are back, and so are Hibs, if you're a happy clapper, that is. Episode 107 of the Hibs Ramble. Good to have you all with us this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whenever you're listening. Just double trouble this afternoon, recording myself and Craig. How are you, my friend?
Good, mate. No long polished off a Coronation Chicken baguette for Coronation Chicken panini for Baguette Express, so
Outstanding.
mozzarella as well, should add. There was also mozzarella on it.
Brilliant. I've had absolutely nothing to eat so far, so I cannot wait to scran afterwards. Don't know what that will be though. We'll get right into it. We felt it would be rude not to get involved with whatever on earth that was the other night and however that played out. So Craig and I were going to chat through it, try and talk about it, and look forward a wee bit as well. Maybe not too far forward though. Craig, team came out, Bursick dropped, Lewis Miller in, Iredale in, Hoylett in. What was your thoughts on that? Because Gray was quizzed pre-match about the formation and the lineup, and he spoke about being a little bit more fluid and talking about playing 3 or maybe even 4 formations throughout the game. What was your take on the team?
I think, like everybody, probably just all delighted that Bursick wasn't in goals after his last few horror shows. Beyond that, I think, again, probably something else that we've spoke about as well, that a back 3 probably suits the players that we've got at this moment in time. And I think there's also that thought process that playing with 3 at the back plus 2 wing backs does make you a bit more secure defensively.
Yeah.
Or in theory, at least it should, because you're sacrificing a body elsewhere to have a body at the back. But I mean, in terms of the team, it's quite hard to actually pick the team now, because there's nobody that you could say that's head and shoulders that maybe isn't getting a game. There's nobody that isn't getting a game that maybe you think should, and there's nobody really that is getting a game feels that they should keep their place. So I think the actual starting 11 itself was much of a muchness, but it was good to see us go with a back 5, although there was that feeling before the game that it was almost set up to just stop Aberdeen rather than do anything ourselves, which obviously probably turned out to be the complete opposite.
Yeah, you alluded to players that don't really have a right to want to start or can justify it. Probably one of the players, especially after the game the other night, is probably Eli Yuan. He started obviously quite strong as well. When you seen him kind of cut in for the start and create that first chance with that quick footwork and getting the shot away, what was your initial thoughts? Because we are kind of big Eli Yuan fans, the two of us, but did you kind of think at that moment, right, okay, he's clearly up for it, he clearly fancies it, and maybe taking some of the stick that he'd got for the weekend maybe a bit personal?
Well, you seen obviously with the stuff that came out after the game, and the whole furor that was made, that something really, really trivial. It was like that whole thing was just a piss take. I think we spoke about it on Monday, but again, the fact that Kukarevich and Campbell are walking about doing now, but they didn't get picked up on, but Ellie does, because he does keep you up his name. It's symbolic of the club and all of that, despite the fact that Gray defended him after the Dundee game about it. But I think if Ellie does something like that early doors, you know he's in the mood for it. There was a game we played against Livingston Christmas Eve, I think 2022.
Under John at home.
Yeah, under Johnson.
Yeah.
And Ellie ripped Nicky Devlin apart that day, like absolutely tore him to shreds. So that was probably in the back of his mind as well. But I think as a winger as well, especially when you get an opportunity to do that so early in the game and it comes off, it would have given him a bit of a boost to think that he would go on and do that. And I actually thought for the most part, I mean, he wouldn't have been my man of the match,
Yeah.
but I do think he had a really good game.
What's your thoughts on Baldies wearing headbands?
I'm not bald, so I don't care. Well, not bald yet anyway. I'm fucking clinging on to whatever I've got left by the skin of my teeth. But
Would you wear a headband if you were bald?
based on how cold it was on Tuesday night, aye.
So LUN can get away with it then,
It's
along
just
with
a
Joe
hat
Neal.
without the top. It's just a hat without the lid.
Obviously, Joe Neal-ish, guess he's kind of gets the goal. Probably going to be on target anyway. Obviously, a lot of our chances throughout the whole match was coming down that left-hand side, whether it be through Nicky Cadden, Senior Hoylett, Ellie Yuan, and then obviously that's where the Neil goal and the chance comes from. See, at that point when that goal goes in, for me, I was like, when I saw the goal, I was like, well, maybe that's our luck changing a wee bit, because how many times you see it go out for a corner or goes over the bar. But we've obviously had a lot of shit luck in recent weeks or recent months, and for me, it just seemed like that could have maybe been something for us to build on, especially with the way that we started in the first half.
Aye, I think especially for Newell as well. I've made no secret of the fact that I'm not Newell's biggest fan. And Tuesday night's first half in particular kind of proves my point why when he's got performances like that in him. I mean, there was the thing about the Dundee game where he only completed 9 passes in 80 minutes. Like for a centre midfielder and your captain, like that's abysmal. But he clearly came out on Tuesday with a point to prove as well. And I thought it was quite fitting for him that he got the goal. And like you said, sometimes when you're in the position that we're in, having a wee bit of luck like that, because I mean it's probably going on target, but it won't be going in.
Yeah.
Like it'll be nowhere near going in. But having that wee nick, it does lead you to think that maybe, like with I hate this, Jack Ross made the phrase famous, but fine margins.
Yeah.
Like that could have been that was the difference to us going in at half time drawing or going in at half time 1-0 up. And like I say, it was quite good for Newell to actually get the goal because I thought his first half performance especially deserved it.
Yeah, there wasn't really too much else in the first half to really speak about, but one thing I did want to, that seems to have been missed in all the highlights as well, is just whether you thought the Nicky Devlin incident is a penalty or handball, or just your overall take on that before we kind of close it up on the actual first half.
Well, I think that's the second time he's got away with a handball against us. I think Pittodrie away last season, maybe.
Yeah.
When he flung his arm out.
Back at 1-0, and that's still in the first half, so it's a key point in
Yeah,
the match, considering we get in at half time as well.
I think I also thought I might be wrong, but I think that might be Rocky gets a header for the corner after that just goes past the post as well.
I think so, aye, yeah.
It might be for that corner. I'm not 100% sure, but it's one of those ones. But I think if that's given against us, you'd be fucking fuming. I think, but at the same time, it does hit his arm, and then it's that almost. It's probably
It's the notion, for me. It's the notion of the fact that like he looks like he's going towards it, and then obviously try to make up for it by like faking the head and doing it
yeah.
that way. I'm just for me, especially with VAR, it seems like something now, like that would be given, because it's like
I
he's
think
crawling along the ground and just kind of latching at it.
I think this might sound really stupid, right? But see where it happens. I actually think it would be difficult to get a conclusive image of actually what's happened.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why VAR haven't looked at it.
Yeah,
But I think probably should have been a penalty because, like I say, if it gets given at the other end, you're raging, but you're probably more raging with the player rather than the decision. Like instances like that, you're given that like we've had with the red cards recently. You're giving the ref the chance to make the call,
yeah,
and let's just be fair. That ref the other night was fucking atrocious. He was so bad. There was a period in the second half where the ball broke and Shinnie was going after it, and Ellie was bearing down on him. And Shinnie done that thing where he just falls and grabs the ball. Like there's no many things that get me more raging in football than that. Like my head was fully off my shoulders at that point.
You mentioned the second half. We obviously went in at half time 1-0 up. What was your take on kind of what we should maybe try and do going into the second half? And the reason why I ask that is I know the season's been pretty poor, to say the least, but we've drawn 6 games so far if you include the game there, and 5 of those we were leading at some point. So at that point we've drew 5 and we've led in 4, and the other one is a 0-0. And then even those that we have lost, we've lost 7 matches so far this season. 4 of them have been by 1 goal, and 2 of those defeats have been when we've been down to 10 men. So do you think some stuff like that plays on the minds of either the players at half time? Fuck, right, okay, we've got a lead, but it's only by 1. So where do you think the players were maybe situated at that point? What do you think Gray was thinking coming out the second half? Because we came out and started like a house on fire again.
I think especially with Lewis Miller would have been bricking it for getting a yellow that was never ever a yellow. Miko obviously got a yellow for complaining about the handball. That nothing got given for. So, but I think they probably took a lot of confidence for the fact that in the main part, like Aberdeen done nothing in the first half. I think they had a couple of half chances. Nisbet had a chance when he eventually got let out of Rocky's pocket before he got put back in again. But no, I thought that there's clearly it's been spoken about. There's clearly been a test of their character and a test of their mettle, and I feel like they came out for the second half thinking we need to get another goal at least, because it would have been that same thing. Well, it was the feeling when Aberdeen got their equaliser that I think everybody in the stadium just thought, "Fuck's sake, here we go."
Yeah. And that obviously comes after Newell has a chance, which probably should have actually ended up being cut to Cadden, but again...
Hoylett should have scored it
should
from
have
a
scored it,
million
but again,
percent.
it comes from Ellie Yuan creating another chance there as well. But yeah, you're right, Hoylett should 100% be scoring that, and then that could have been us 2-0 up very early doors, but Aberdeen then go down the other end, not obviously straight away, but then they end up making it 1-1. I can't remember if it was Iredale. I think he must have still been on the pitch at that point, really struggling to keep up with Aberdeen winger as well. But for me, trying
But was that Shade Morris? And so that I
to
think that's the difference at the moment between these managers and Gray in terms of inexperience, because Jimmy Tillino obviously realised that Keskinen wasn't doing much. So he got him, he pulled him off, and within, I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't long at all, maybe a minute, 2 tops. Shade and Morris had already got in behind and squared it.
Iredale looked like he was struggling big time.
Yeah, but I think, well, one, he's not had a lot of game time, and 2, that Morris is just rapid.
Aye.
But again, it's one of those where we got the luck for Newell's deflection for our goal. The luck then goes against us in terms of the actual play bit itself. Aberdeen isn't lucky, but how the ball finds itself to McGrath's feet.
There's such a big gap for me between Triantis and Newell at that point, though, because by the time it falls at McGrath, Newell's only just coming in the box and Triantis is basically on the goal line. So I know obviously you talk about luck and stuff like that, but I would expect them to be a wee bit closer and kind of narrow that gap. And I think, again, if you're thinking it from an attacking perspective, while you're defending, you maybe click on to the fact that somebody's maybe going to drop deep and sit there, and that's maybe just more awareness rather than anything else.
I think that comes to Triantis especially, like his game intelligence at times seems a bit lacking. I think you can tell he's a centre half playing in centre mid.
Yeah, and you could see that later on, because there was a chance that fell to Graham Shinney, and he had all the time in the world at the edge of the box, and again the gap between our midfield was just huge, and they were sitting far too deep again. Just very, very quickly, because I don't really want to talk about obviously their goals too much, but they then take the lead. You alluded to it already. Everyone in the stadium must have thought, right, here we go again, and then that then happens. What on earth is the goalie doing?
Just the same as Bursick away at Tannadice. Like, this guy hasn't played. I actually went on to look to see. He has not played a first team game of football since 2019.
Mental.
Like that for me is red flags all over the joint in terms of, one, why the fuck is he in the building for a start? I know I said this to somebody yesterday actually. Like, you can get away with having somebody like that, like Scott Carson at Man City. Scott Carson's at Man City. He's been there, done it. He's quite clearly like third or fourth choice, and that's only if there would be a catastrophe at the first two. If anything happened to both of the first two, they'd probably still go out and try and get an emergency goalie.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be in a position where we've got a safe number two who's no played any football for years. And then it becomes a case of, it's clear that he's not earned his game on Tuesday. He's been put in purely to take Bursick out the firing line.
Yeah.
To the point where now the majority of folk, I think, would want Bursick back in goals, which shows you how bad this other boy was. I mean, he couldn't. I noticed that he rolled the ball to the edge of the box to kick it long, and he barely reached the halfway line. Like, it's just, and again, it's luck that the way it falls to Devlin, and Devlin does like a fucking half back heel volley that just sails over everybody and goes in.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you're thinking, at that point, I'm pretty much like Gray. Like, it's now not just about players and performances. It's now there's something else at play here, because that's probably the first time under Gray when I've like watching a full performance thinking that they do not deserve that. Dundee on Saturday they did. St Mirren at home after the first half they did. Dundee United away after the final sort of 20-25 minutes capitulation. Whatever we got in those games we fully deserved. Tuesday night they didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
When it goes to 2-1, they definitely didn't deserve it.
See, after it went to 2-1, Cadden has a chance. Obviously, it's the post or the junction as well. At that point, are you thinking we've got a real chance? Because Aberdeen didn't, considering where they're on the table and considering they've been flying, didn't it really look like defensively they were up to much? Or did you think it was a case of, right, okay, we're just going to huff and puff and we're going to see it out and we're going to get beat 2-1?
It felt like that, and I thought it was quite telling as well that it only took until about maybe the 83rd or the 84th minute before Boyle came on. I think that gives a good indication of where Boyle actually sits at Hibs at the moment. Especially if you're goals down with X amount of time to go, you'd want them on sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And there was I felt it wasn't not necessarily going to be one of those huff and puff ones, but I thought it was going to be one where it would be the glorious failure at the end. We'd have shots in the goalie after doing basically nothing for 80-85 minutes. We'd end up pulling off 2 or 3 worldies.
Yeah.
Obviously it transpired to be one of the fucking maddest 5 minutes of football I've ever seen.
Aye, so let's kind of walk through it a wee bit then. So that obviously then didn't transpire. He didn't pull off many saves at all. Nicky Cadden steps up once again, who's turning into a real player for us, with a very... I've watched it back a couple of times, it just feels very Lee Griffiths-like. I don't know if it feels similar vibes to you.
Well, you know where I sit.
Aye.
So the angle that I had on that, I was with my stepladdy, and so we're both, because it's 92nd minute, so we're getting ready. If this hits the wall, goes over the bar, like we're probably away. And I said to him, I was like, that's going in the top corner. Like, Mitov's given him far too much of the goal to aim at.
Yeah.
And I could even see it for where I sit in terms of Mitov wasn't even positioned centrally. He was far more.
He was so far
in
right.
terms of where the goals are, because I'm the famous 5 upper at the west stand side. He was closer to me than the middle of the goals.
Yeah, he was so far
So
over.
there was only one place that Cadden could put it. And I get what you mean about the Griffiths stuff. Again, for Cadden, I thought he deserved to have that moment. He's quite quickly becoming a very important player. I thought it was very harsh that he got taken off on Saturday.
Yeah.
But that's now 3 goals in 3 games with 1 disallowed as well, or 2 and 3 with 1 disallowed.
Yeah. He speaks very well as well, like in his interviews and stuff like that. He's spoken very well, so you can tell kind of.
He sounds a bit like Chris as well, which is strange.
So he clearly kind of understands the position that we find ourselves in. for all his good work, both him and both LAUM, for all their good work so far in that match, when Aberdeen then go down the right hand side, there isn't really much of a challenge put in by LAUM whatsoever. Cadden then dives in and gets absolutely fuck all of the ball, and then their third goal. And I put a tweet out earlier on about the goal, so I'll mention that in a sec. But how were you feeling at that point, considering we just brought it back to 2-2, and then arguably two of our best players on the pitch that night have then let us down defensively, not been able to stop a ball? Like, at that point in the game, surely you're just wanting to kind of take them out more than anything else.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily blame Ellie in that circumstance, because he did do a couple of instances during the game actually where he lost the ball and then actually went and won it back. But in terms of that one, 95th minute, I mean, you can talk about concentration and that all you want, right? But players are going to be tired. Like, the players had put in their all.
Especially what those two put in.
Yeah, for the 95 minutes prior. Nicky Cadden, I think he's probably had it in the back of his mind that if he hits this boy the wrong way, he could be off, based on the record that we've had with sending offs this season. But I do think that is one of those ones where you probably just take whatever comes.
Yeah.
And then the goal. I mean, the goal itself pisses me off no end, because all you're seeing is what an unbelievable hit, what an unbelievable goal.
Far from it.
Sean,
So
I'm
far
not even joking, right? I reckon if that ball comes at me, I can catch it.
Yeah. I agree. 100%
There's
agree.
there's no conceivable way that a goalie who's played in goals all his career reacts that way. He almost punches it when he's in the net.
He's already behind the line when he hits it.
Aye.
That's what annoys me. Like, I've seen similar stuff, like potential goal of the season, like unbelievable goal,
See if
unbelievable that.
that same thing happens, right? Same area of the park that he does it, but he catches it and it goes either top right or top left. Then you're like, fucking hell. Then you hold your hands
Oh,
up.
100%.
But when it's right down the boy's throat,
It's
nah,
not as if the
I'm not having
keeper
it.
is either side of the goal. Like, he's already centrally the goal.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, like, Sockler takes it very well, like, to adjust his body, and like, if it was a Hibs player, would obviously like be complimenting that, and rightly so. However, regardless of whether it's a Hibs player that scored it or an Aberdeen player, like, that is so savable. It is unbelievably piss easy to save.
Yep.
And that's what frustrates me the most, because not only was he then at fault for their second goal, I would then argue that he's at fault for their third. He somehow manages to make himself lower to the ground and a smaller target, and makes the
When
goal
he's already
look
like
better.
only 5'10" or something,
Aye. And then
or
makes
whatever he is.
makes the goal look even better, because he then falls into the ground, so it makes it look like he's dived all the way up, but it's right down
Yeah.
his throat.
It
And it's
makes it
not right down his
the
throat
way.
as in like with the pace, it's just central to him. So if he stands up and just puts his hands up like that, that's
Aye,
soft.
aye, and the way that he falls back, it's almost like the shot's been too powerful for him to do that. And like I say, I didn't want to come across as bitter to Sockler, because it is the technique to pull it off and get it on target is decent. Like,
Yeah.
you can't ignore that. But aye, the goalie has to be doing so much better, and there's so many feelings and emotions when you're at a game of football, right? And that when James Wilson equalised for Hearts, I kind of sat in my seat, with my head in my hands, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" Kind of, it's that initial like bit. But that when that went in last night, I stood up and I was just like that genuinely felt like if you know, when it gets to the end of the season and you look back at a moment, where do I think that I finally realised that we're going down? Sockler's goal for me was that, because there was no conceivable way that they should have
Got 3
that,
points.
at that point in time they were walking away with 3 points, and I genuinely couldn't believe for what I'd watched for the 95 minutes prior that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's when you feel like you say, that small bit of luck that Newell gets with his deflected goal, that's when the luck's just completely run out that happens.
And then we take kick off. Walk me through what on earth that was. Obviously, again, created for Yuan. Rocky does well to bring it down and then give it to Ellie in the first place. Great ball in. Dwight Gale, brilliant from him to read that he shouldn't be putting that towards goal, he should be putting it back across goal, so great awareness for him. And then what on earth was that?
Yeah, just it's actually a really good team goal when you look at it in terms of Josh Campbell does well to win the initial header.
Yeah.
And then Rocky doing the twinkle toes kind of thing on the edge of the box, laying it off to Ellie, but then Rocky having the foresight to not just stand and wait. And I thought out of anybody on the park that deserved to have a personal moment like that, getting that equaliser at that stage of the game was Rocky. After, even he's barely played this season. Then before the Dundee game, before the Aberdeen game, or was it the Dundee game? He's the one wheeled out to do the pre-match stuff and have to field questions about the manager's future and how he feels, when he's barely kicked the ball. And then for him to the sheer. Do you know what I mean? You could have put 10 Aberdeen players in between him and the ball, and he was still getting it at that point. He was just so determined that it was going to be his, and he deserved it as well. I thought he was outstanding on Tuesday. Rocky would have been my man of the match. Like I said, Nisbet was absolutely
Performances like
pocketed.
that from him from time to time. We do get
Yeah,
performances like that, and I think that's again similar to where your frustration lies with Newell. A lot of people's frustration will lie with Rocky because he still has that lapse of judgment and lapse of error in him as well. But obviously, he's picked up the goal, and I completely agree. He's deserved that moment in a Hibs shirt. Unfortunately, obviously, didn't get us 3 points; only got us one.
and
Um,
but I do think that with Rocky, like that system's the one that gets the best out of him
yeah,
because he's the middle of a three, so he's got a player either side of him to protect him. So even if he's the central one and he charges out, it's fine because it turns into a back four behind him.
yeah.
He's then got two wing backs that can help cover. The only thing he needs to work on is that he still can't header a ball. But other than that, in terms of his groundwork as a defender, for the flack that he gets, he's actually really as a 1v1 defender, he's really good. Nisbet got nothing out of him.
Yeah.
He had a half chance from a header, but that was it. Nisbet got absolutely fucking nothing out of him.
Some other stuff that I've seen a lot this season is how, and yes, this might sound like an Ellie Yuan loving, and why not? I really don't care if it does sound like that or not. He's a top player. A lot of he doesn't care, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't want to be here. I spent the majority of that match watching him, purely just because of what happened at the weekend, and because those are the types of players that when they're playing like that, that's who you want to watch. Obviously, me and Marvin Bartley on Twitter had a bit of a disagreement to do with the Ellie Yuan situation, and Ellie Yuan bit back after the match as well. But if you watched him throughout that match, especially the first goal, second and the third, boy, whether it's football or whether it's Hibs, it doesn't really matter. He loves it, and you
Yeah,
can see the emotion and the relief come off a player like that. Because although he might not have got any goals, you can see what it means to him to be involved in creating it, or getting an assist and stuff like that as well. So, yeah,
yeah. Again,
it pains me when it constantly gets brought up.
it's the comments that like. Let's be honest, right? Maybe like some folk out there will of course know people who work for Hibs or will probably be pals with somebody that plays for Hibs, whether it be close or distant pals, right? I would wager the vast, vast, vast majority of us have absolutely no fucking idea what happens out with 3 till 5 on a Saturday or a midweek game or whatever, right? Nobody has a clue. And you have folk that say Yuan doesn't care. His attitude's shocking. He's a pain in the arse. And the best one, right? The absolute best one, because it used to get labelled at Ryan Porteous as well all the time. He thinks he's better than he actually is. How the fuck do you know how good somebody thinks they are? It's all wind and pish as far as I'm concerned. If Ellie Yuan's doing the keep you uppies when we went down to 10 men, but we're sitting third in the league at the time, nobody bats an eyelid.
Yep.
The flack that he's had over the summer, in terms of the racial stuff and all of that, I do think he probably should have kept his mouth shut with Bartley, because now it just looks like two mums arguing in the playground.
Do you know
With
what it
Bartley
sets it up perfectly for though? And obviously, this is blue sky thinking more than anything else. Do you know what that reply for Ellie Yuan sets it up perfectly for? Marvin Bartley then bites back and all comparing honours. That then sets it up for Ellie Ewan to have a selfie with the Scottish Cup at the end of the season. That's what that sets it up for. I'll tell you that
The
right
pair
now.
of them actually, the pair of them have a selfie with it.
Exactly.
But
That's what
I
that
do
sets it up
think,
for.
I do think Bartley's. I mean, when I watched the Premier Sports coverage on Saturday, I did agree with a hell of a lot Bartley had to say.
Yeah.
I think you can clearly see he still actually cares deeply. Whenever he speaks on social media, he's been away from Hibs for about 7, 8 years now.
It's still we, it's still us,
It's
it's still it's
we
just
us that Kenny's, even though he's had his spells working at Livingston and all that and playing for Livingston, like it's still we us and all. But I do think that when there is situations like that, going after the easy target is the easy thing to do. Like he's no calling out anybody that might have been, he might be pals with. He never really called out Gray for the mistakes that he's made. He was no really called out Newell for the lack of leadership and like qualities that you'd expect for your captain. He's went for the boy that everybody's already having a go at. So I did agree with a lot he had to say, but I also had to disagree with how he went about it. And now, like I said, the pair of them chirping back and forth. But do you know what? If it gets a rise out of Ellie like we got the other night, Marvin, keep going. If it gets you going in the morning, keep going because it
yeah,
clearly worked.
completely agree. Um, Obviously the way that match ends the other night takes a lot of flack off of the board. It takes a lot of, and I know it's just a point, but the manner in which we get the point, for some people that might have felt like a victory, the way that match ended, and how we were down again. Where do you sit in regards to your overall emotion, whether it be post match versus now, or obviously I'm not expecting you to have changed into a happy clapper, so to speak, but where do you think a lot of the fan base are maybe now sitting? Because I think if that match ends 2-1 or 3-2, we probably see a bit of a riot out the west after that
Mm.
match. But the way that it ends, people are probably leaving a wee bit more buzzed. And then obviously nothing's really been said since then. So the board were probably 10-15 minutes away from an absolute riot outside the west, and Gray getting absolutely murdered and the players not being able to leave the stadium.
Yeah,
But
I
because that then
mean,
comes to an end the way that it does, has it maybe
I've
brought some of the people that were maybe on the fence about a lot back on, or where do you sit?
I don't think so. I still think there's a massive feeling of apathy about it all. I mean, when the game kicked off, Block 7 set off firecracker. I mean, I absolutely shit myself. Because I had no idea what the fuck it was. Then obviously I can't see it, but then it transpires that there's a sack the board banner, and then they start singing Kensal get to fuck, Malky get to fuck, but nobody around them joined in. It was literally just them. And you compare that to Johnson at the St Livingston or St Mirren game, whatever one it was, when the third goal went in and it was almost unanimous, the entire East stand saying Johnson get to fuck. So I still think there's a general feeling of apathy. I personally still think that it's it's all fine and well the players doing it on Tuesday night, but where were they on Saturday? Like this, and this is my issue with
You're
with a
also
group of
saying doing it,
players.
it did only get us a point in the end as well. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Which people need to remember.
aye, it did, and it came. It's probably came in a game where we. I mean, it's went from being raging that we didn't get 3 points to being pleased that we managed to get a point. Probably, but I still think there's a sort of back the team, sack the board mantra going about, and I mean all this does is put a plaster on a knife wound. It really does, because whether we go on a run now, say maybe we stay unbeaten for 4 or 5 games, winning two of them, drawing three. The minute we start, we lose one and then another. The calls are going to come again. I don't think there'll be a section of the support happy until they see significant change at the top, and that includes whether it be Malcolm McPherson, Malky Mackay, Ben Kensell, David Marshall, seen all of them moved on in one capacity or another.
Yeah.
Because as much as you can, when you say about Malky still being, Malky just being in the door and all of that, and I get that, but it's not as if he's fresh in the door. He's the best pals with the chairman who got hounded out 20 years ago.
Moving on
So
to our upcoming fixture away to Motherwell. Obviously, Motherwell
fine,
are.
thanks.
What was that? Did you
It's
say
just
fine?
fine,
Thanks.
thanks.
Aye,
Hmm.
sound. Aye. Class dad pat, I love it. Do you think this is a great opportunity for us to take advantage of inconsistent Motherwell? They obviously started the season quite well, but they're losing one, then winning one, then they're losing one and winning one. And we are, as I mentioned earlier on, we've lost 7 already this season, but 4 of them are by 1 goals. 2 of those matches were obviously down to 10 men, and some of those matches we were leading in at some points
Yeah.
as well. And then obviously the 6 draws were 5 we've led in as well. So yes, it's been a very, very shit season, but if we can maybe make small tweaks and tighten things up a little bit, we could probably go on a wee bit a run. And do you think this is a good opportunity? I know we play Celtic, so wheels could fall off, but do you think it's a good opportunity?
I mean, wheels could fall off, but again, the wheels could stay on. That's but
Stabilise.
um, aye. I mean, Motherwell have only scored 1 goal less than us. 1 goal more than us. Actually, they've played 2 more games though.
Prior to
Um,
playing Dundee, though, we were like 6th in the league for goals conceded as well. So like,
yeah,
I know that things have been painted in a very bad way defensively, and rightly so because of some of the individual errors and mistakes. But we're obviously highlighting it a little bit more because one, it's our own club, and two, we're down at the bottom. So if we
yeah,
can maybe tighten things up a wee bit and turn a few of those defeats into draws or some of those draws into wins, the gap at the minute is growing, and
yeah.
this is a great opportunity to close that because after the weekend we play Celtic away, and then we've got County at home, Aberdeen away, Hearts away, Killie at home. So there isn't really a lot of fixtures there where we're sitting thinking, right, okay, we stand a really good chance, especially considering Hearts and Aberdeen are both away.
No, no, but I mean, we're not getting cut adrift yet. But the longer it goes with if one win, if 1 in 14 becomes 1 in 15, you're almost at the point of playing half a full season with 1 win,
Yeah,
and it then becomes a point where it's just like positions all over the place then become untenable, because it's not a case of you're getting rid of the manager because he's not good enough or whatever it is. You're getting rid of him because you need to see something else needs to change. Like, he changed the system the other night and it worked, and I would, in a way, I would actually argue that probably heightens the case to change him even more,
yeah.
because why is it taking him this long to change it when he could have done it 4 or 5 games ago? And we
What
might know have capitulated at Dundee. We might know have had a shite first half against St Mirren.
what do you
Like,
want to see on other than obviously a win and 3 points? What do you want to see from a team selection or a setup for the weekend?
it's the same as Tuesday night. I would keep it the exact same as Tuesday night. Maybe
Starting 11 or
I'd maybe don't know, Gale for Miko maybe. Obviously Newell's going to be suspended, so um, you're probably looking at Quan. I would say Quan to come in.
yeah.
But knowing it might be fucking Mariah Welsh might come out of nowhere. Or Luke Amos or Noah Kenna. They might just make an appearance somehow. Um, but I'd probably go with just Quan. I'd rather not have Trent as in midfield, but we're much of a muchness with that. And then the same, Ellie's staying through the middle with probably Gale alongside him. Because whatever it is with Miko, it's just not working. Like, that's Miko's probably one that you'd look to. I'd probably be looking at Swansea in January and saying, look, it's just not worked. Can I go back?
Do you think the whole Miko situation isn't working just because Boyle's not really firing either, and you need a player like Boyle on one side and maybe Ellie Ewan on the other instead of Hoylett to try and get the best out of someone like Kukarevich?
No, do you know what? I just actually think that he's no that good. I think that we've seen a lot. Obviously, we've seen him when he was here the last time. But he was playing with or replacing Kevin Nisbet that was on fire. So it's easier to look like a good player when you're playing next to somebody who's like in a really good vein of form.
Yeah,
Whereas Miko's just, it's just not working. You want to see something from him, whether it's, if it's his good hold up play, if he's good aerially, is he working channels. and he just doesn't seem to be doing a lot. Doesn't seem to be doing much. Whether that's a confidence thing or an ability thing, I don't know. But I'd probably say that alongside a goalie, that's the two areas that we're going to have to look massively to be. And I'm talking January 1st announcing it, that we've got a goalie and a new striker.
Well, if we've got someone that does their job properly and is good at their job in place before then we should be okay.
Yeah. This run of fixtures that we've got in December could be make or break whether we find ourselves not necessarily cut adrift, because I think from us up to probably Dundee, for basically everybody bar the West 2 in Aberdeen, everybody will probably beat each other and they'll take points off each other. So there won't be a defined, it won't be as if there's like a clear top 6 and there'll be a clear bottom 6. There'll be a bottom 9 that'll, at the top end of it, change, and a team will go on a run and no winning games, and then somebody it'll chop and change throughout the season.
Happens every
season.
season.
I think ultimately that's what will probably end up getting us out of the situation that we're in, rather than us being all of a sudden getting a lot better. But we need to be in a position come January that as long as we're off the bottom, but we can't go into January still being bottom and still having only maybe one game, 2 games by that point. Because it's not a case of getting cut adrift. It then becomes just a complete nervousness in the stadium that nobody knows when the next one's coming from. And that's what the difference is to the Butcher tenure. The Butcher tenure, we were sleepwalking. And it was only when we got to the bottom 6 and it was like, right, 1 win and we're sound. 5 games left, 4 games left, 3 games left, 2 games left. And I got to the last game of the season, it's like, fuck. And then obviously what happened. The good thing about this happening to us is it is happening early enough that something can be done to stop it.
Yeah. To bring us to a close, Craig, I'm not going to ask you for a score prediction for the weekend because it's just not in your nature, but I want you to predict something that will happen at the weekend during the match of some kind. My prediction will be that LAU will bag a double.
Fucking hell, I was going to say LA would score.
I didn't say we win, but
Bursick will have the game of his life.
2-0. 2-0 Hibs, LAU double, Bursick man of the match, saves a penalty.
Bursick man of the match, aye. Pull off a couple of Craig Gordon Derby-esque saves.
Right, thank you very much, Craig, for joining me this lovely afternoon. I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you've made it this far, everyone, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And when the game comes at the weekend, we hope you have a lovely, lovely weekend. Stick in. See you later.
Let's get ready to rumble.